Alright, so now what we're going to do is, we've got this duck and we've got everything skinned out except for the neck and the head. And so, what we're going to do, we left part of the neck attached to the body. So we're going to go up inside here and we're going to skin this down and remove as much of the neck tissue as we can. Because this is a duck, the head isn't going to fit through the neck opening, because it's just the neck opening is too small, the head's too large. So the first thing we need to do is skin down as close as we can to the back of the head. We can see the neck and we can definitely see the trachea and the windpipe, and right next to the trachea we can also see the esophagus. So a little anatomy. The esophagus is really flexible tube that food goes through, and the windpipe is very solid, so it can't be compressed. But we're going to remove all of that: spinal column, neck, windpipe, and esophagus. And so then at that point, in order to skin out the head on a duck, we need to make an incision into the head of the duck, and it can be made in 3 or more locations. It could be made on the ventral side underneath the bill of the duck, and that's what we're going to do. If you knew which side of the duck was going to be showing, you could do it on either the right or left side of the face of the duck and have one side facing away, or you could do it right on the crown if you knew that what you were going to see, it was going to be up in the air and you weren't going to see the crown, you were going to see underneath the chin, and you didn't want to have to try to sew that up without anything showing. But to make this incision, first of all, you want a sharp scalpel blade, and you're going to take the scalpel blade and you're going to poke it through the hide, and then lift up a little bit, because you want to cut from the inside out so you don't cut a lot of feathers off, and cut down into the neck region with that sharp scalpel. And then once you've made that incision, you're going to go ahead and open that incision up, and I'm going to extend it just a touch further in the front, and then you're going to open that incision up, and the whole head is going to have to come out through that incision. And so I push the incision back and then force the head and the neck to come up through it. And as I do that, I can see the duck meat the muscles are kind of dark red. I can see that, so there's some connective tissue holding, so I just make gentle cuts with the scalpel blade. On the other side, if I start to pull this over, I can see the trachea there. Make gentle cuts on the muscle to get that to release and get this to start coming up through. So pushing the hide to each side and inverting this over the back of the skull. And again, just cut on the muscle, the leading edge of the muscle, don't cut on the hide. It's harder to hide any of our holes or mistakes on the head because how short the feathers are. Where on the body, if you have a hole or something in the hide, it's pretty easy to hide it because the feathers are so long. And here what we're looking at is the hide and the skin, and we're seeing feathers underneath it. And so here we can see the back of the neck muscles coming up and meeting the skull. And so as you skin over this, what's going to happen is you're going to have the hide kind of come to a point. So if you follow the hide up this way and around this way, it's like the hide is stuck to part of the skull, and that's because the hide is actually going into the ear canal. So we have to break our rule, which says don't ever cut on the hide itself, cut on the leading edge or the connective tissue. We're going to cut right across that little piece of hide right there, and it's going to make a hole in the hide. You'll see that as soon as you cut, but that hole is going to be the ear hole, and so you'll have a hole in the hide, but it's one that you need to have there. And so we can see both. Once I do that, you can see both the ear canal and the hole in the hide where the hide was connected to the ear canal. So once that's done, then you can kind of continue to pull the hide forward and stay behind it with your skinning, stay behind the leading edge, kind of behind that hole that made, the ear hole that was made. and continue down, and you'll start to see a dark sphere on the skull itself, and that's the beginning of the eye socket. So we'll flip this over and go back to the other side and look again, and we can see the hide coming to a point. It's like it's stuck, and so we cut through that gently, and again we'll see a hole immediately, and that's our ear canal. And then once that releases, we can cut right behind that hole, cut the connective tissue that's holding the hide, and we'll start moving it forward towards the bill, and right away you'll see that dark sphere that is the eye socket. So, and when you go across the eye socket, when you skin across the eye socket, you want to make sure you stay well back from the leading edge of the skin, because pretty soon we're going to create another hole, and that hole is going to be made by the eyelids. And if you cut the eyelids, it's really difficult to hide that mistake. So we want to stay well behind the leading edge of the hide as we go over the eyes. And so pull on the skin to get it pull it towards the beak, and then make your cuts well behind the leading edge of the skin, and the eye should appear, and you'll see the eyeball and you'll see the eyelids, and it looks like again you've got a little hole in the skin, and that little hole is the eyelid, which is another hole that we want in the hide. And then we keep working our way down towards the bill and try to make sure that we stay behind the eyelid, just like we stay behind the opening created for the ear canal. And once we get that kind of pulled past the eye and skinned past the eye with our sharp scalpel, then we're down actually to the bill part of the skull, and that's where we can stop. So we go over to the other side and do the same thing, pulling forward on the hide, stay behind the leading edge. You start to see the eye ball and the eye socket, and then you see a little hole appear, and it's just behind the eyelid, which is what we wanted. And we stay behind that hole that is the eyelid. Make sure we don't cut the eyelid itself. Don't cut it open. We don't want any holes except for the ear canal hole and the eyelids, and those. So we'll have 4 holes in the hide on our skull, but only those 4. And then we continue down until we are at the base of the bill of the duck. Alright. And then at that point, we have the head all skun all the way off down to the bill.